Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at the 1998, 1999, and 2000 Topps Tek Sets. Okay, so if I asked you what is the most ridiculous card set for parallels, you're probably going to mention something in the last 5 to 10 years, and with good reason. Card companies have really gotten carried away with parallels. But really, I don't think that that's a very accurate. I mean, yes, these card sets have gone way out of hand with parallels, but it's because of lack of imagination. If you want to find a card set that is just the craziest parallel idea ever, if you said Topps Moments and Milestones, hey, great, that is an excellent choice. But for my money, I'd go all the way back to 1998. The card set that Topps created with Topps Tek is absolutely insane. But in a way, it almost kind of fits because, look, this was less than 10 years into the world of parallels in sports cards. And you would think that getting completely out of hand that early wouldn't make sense, except for the fact that in 1991, we had our first card set that truly was made with parallels in packs. A year before Topps Gold, we had Wildcard, and Wildcard made a card set with 6 parallels, 7 copies of every single card. Right from the beginning of parallels in the modern sports card world, we had way too many parallels. 2 years later, in 1993, they get way out of hand even beyond that. And then they ceased to exist, but Collector's Edge picked up the mantle, and so by 1995, Collector's Edge had 9 to 10 different parallels of their cards that were in 2 different packs, but still, you're talking 9 to 10 different versions of every card. That's a lot. The next year, in 1996, Select Certified, they also did 9 different parallels of each card, again across 2 different packs. And then in 1997, they continued that. So by 1998, the idea of having 9 different parallels was actually kind of, even though most collectors didn't realize this was the case, there was kind of a standard quality to it. So Bowman and Bowman Chrome, they had 9 different versions of every card. Topps Gold Label in 1998 also had 9 different versions of every card, unless you want to count the 1 of 1s, in which case they had 12 versions of every single card. So, interestingly, we already had a lot of parallels. It's just that very few people tried to focus on getting all of those parallels in 1998, and then in years later, we've just never sat down and really taken stock of that. And as we got into the new millennium, the number of parallels actually shrank and then slowly grew back up over time. So in the late 1990s, there were actually a ton of parallels. And, well, in that 1998 year where we had Bowman and Bowman Chrome and we had Topps Gold Label that were really continuing that tradition of a whole card sheet full of different versions of cards, Topps was trying to figure out how to tap into the world of the high roller, which was a big part of the card market by this time. I mean, Topps Gold Label is a great example of it, but they really wanted to kind of test the boundaries of what super focused collectors who were just persistent and would try to get everything, what they would be okay with. And that's what Topps Tek was created for. It was intended to figure out the breaking point of what we were willing to put up with. And oh my word, was this card set built for that. And it's weird to say that because it's actually a very simple card set. It's 90 cards and there are no inserts and there's only 1 parallel. Sort of. But that's an accurate way of describing it. It's just that the set is, well, it's a little bit more complex than that. So when we look at the card, we can see that, okay, it's an acetate card, beautiful acetate card. Picture of the player, it has a background within kind of a swoosh, and the whole card surface on the front and on the back has a hollow foil effect, which a lot of people refer to as a refractor. It's not, it's just the way that the cards come. And then in the acetate window area, you have a pattern. And that pattern, about that pattern. If you look on the card back, you'll notice that the card number looks kind of like a finest card number. It has a number at the top and then an area at the bottom to put a number, only there is a number there. It's just not printed. It's punched into the card. It's literally relief into the card. And that number is so difficult to read. It really is. You got to get the light just right. 5s, 6s, and 8s are all really difficult to read. 7s, and I mean, it wasn't a great idea, but it's almost a stealth number. And that number relates to the pattern in the clear area of the card, because every single one of those 90 players, each card has 90 different patterns. So here's the math. The card set has 90 players. Each player has 90 different versions of the card, which means if somebody wanted to sit down and collect one of every single card in the set, that's 8,100 cards. Mind-numbingly large number. Now, a binder can easily hold 810 cards, which means if somebody collected all of the different versions of all the cards here, it would take 10 binders to house all the cards. It is insane how many cards there are. But I mean, even for one player, the 90 different versions of the card, that alone is just a shockingly large number of cards. And on the offset that somebody wanted to actually pursue collecting all 90 cards and they want to see what the patterns are that they're missing, I'm going to go ahead and show you all 90 different patterns here in this video. And I'm not going to take a lot of time doing so. I'm going to kind of move through fairly quickly. So you can go back and pause it if you want to see what the particular patterns are that you're missing if you're trying to put together a card set. Starting here with cards 1 through 10. And you'll notice that I have tried to get as many Darren Erstad cards in this set as I possibly could, and I'm missing quite a lot. Here we are with 11 through 20. And to the tune of, I didn't even get a third of all the Erstad cards. It's that difficult to put together all of these scheme cards. Here we are with 21 through 30. And so that means that the variety that you're seeing here is really kind of indicative of putting together these card sets. Here we are with 31 through 40. And I'll go ahead and stop talking through as I'm distinguishing the different numbers. So 41 through 50 here is the next group that we're looking at. And then we've got 51 through 60 that follows that, obviously. And then we come to 61 through 70. So these are the patterns for that. And then 71 through 80 is the next group. And then the last group, of course, is 81 through 90. And you'll notice that there isn't even a rhythm to the different types of patterns. The patterns are all scattered all over the place. So there's no way to really pay attention to where any of the patterns show up. And you'll also will notice that it doesn't matter what the player is, the patterns are all consistent, which is pretty obvious to this card set. But it is difficult to put all these together. I mean, it took me a year to get this video together, which part of that was based upon the cost, which is there have been 2 opportunities to buy one player 90 cards. But you're talking $100 or more for that, and I couldn't afford it at the time. So piecing this together was a long-standing project for me. And so the idea of collecting one card, or collecting all 90 players, or all 90 cards for one player, is a really daunting undertaking. But at any rate, those are the different patterns that they have for all 90 versions of every single player. But I did mention early on that there is, there's a parallel. And the parallel is every single one of those cards, all 90 cards of each player, or 8,100 cards, every single card can also be found with an atomic refractor, which they call a diffractor. This is a card which is completely the same. There's no differentiation saying that it's a diffractor, but they have a prismatic holofoil over the front as well as on the back, which has the same effect as an atomic refractor. And these cards are not as unreasonably rare as you might think, which is that these cards are at about a 1:24 ratio to the rest of the cards, so they're actually somewhat attainable. Again, it's just there's so many of these cards. So to go back to my previous statement about getting all the cards, if somebody literally wanted to collect one of every single type of card that was released, that is 16,200 cards. That's how many unique cards there are in this 1998 card set. That's a lot, and it's way too many for 1998. I mean, even just collecting the 90 cards for one player, that alone was not feasible in 1998 because there was no eBay, there was no online marketplace. There were some chat rooms about cards, but there was no place where you could go and find cards all over the place. If you wanted to do this, you either had to buy so many packs or you had to live at card shows hunting to get the last of these cards, and it took a long, long, long time. You had to be a dedicated high roller, and well, that model was just too much for 1998, so by 1999, they changed the model. Topps was still trying to find that balance point that would work, and the 1999 model did a good job of fixing a lot of the problems of 1998, starting with the fact that the cards themselves have a much more distinct look to them. Here it has a triangular design, which is based more around a baseball diamond. It has a wonderful team color base, which helps to give each one of these cards a much stronger identity for fans. That was a big help, and the patterns are a lot more clear. The 1998 patterns, I mean, you go back and you look at some of these patterns, some of them are really difficult to tell the difference between one and another. There are a lot of patterns where you really kind of have to go and look at the card number to even figure out what the difference is with them. In 1999, the patterns are a lot more distinct and clear, and that's because there are a lot less patterns. There are only 30 patterns. So they could focus on bigger, bolder patterns, but they also have some sort of an icon on each card. Card number 1 has an American flag. Card number 2, well, that has the logo for the league that this team is in. And so that means that now every single card, every pattern has a distinct theme, whether that is the team name, the city name, some baseball bats or a baseball glove or things like that. There's some icon on each card that is distinct, is strong, is clear, and it helps to give this whole card set a better relationship to fans. They also reduced the number of players. So instead of having 90 players, they only have 45 players in this card set. So now, instead of a 90 and 90 card set, it's 45 players and 30 versions of every card. Okay, not entirely, because when you look at the card back, you'll notice that the card number has something interesting on it. It has a letter, either an A or a B. Every single player has 2 versions of their card, an A card with one picture, a B card with a different picture. So that means that they actually have 30 different versions of the A and 30 versions of the B, so they still have 60 versions of every single player card for 45 different players. Or you could say it's a 90 card set with 30 different parallels of each of the 90 different cards. Either way you want to look at it, there's still a lot of cards in this set. But it's a lot easier to get your hands on these cards, it's a lot easier to identify the cards, and it's a lot easier to put all the cards together for whichever player you want. So the card set works at a much more accessible level. They also have a parallel, but instead of diffractors, this is a gold parallel where they took the acetate and they replaced it with gold holofoil. So the card's not see-through, but the big thing is on the card back, these are all individually serial numbered out of 10. So that means that there are 60 different cards for each player. There are 600 total gold cards, 10 each for each one of the 60 cards. Still a lot of cards, but a lot easier to wrap your head around. Thank goodness they did this. It is a much easier card set to approach, but it's still a big card set. Now, before I move on, they did have some inserts, 2 insert sets specifically. The first insert set is Topps Tek Phenoms. This is a wonderful acetate card, one of the best acetate cards, I think, with the exception of that bat in the background. I really don't think that bat came through nearly as well as the designers thought. Otherwise, the rest of this card has a great effect, both with the acetate and with the holofoil. The way that it comes through has a cool liveliness, looks really cool, and the see-through areas are little kind of almost hidden windows, which is a cool combination. Then they have Tectonics. Now Tectonics, this is interesting because I believe that the background is the same picture of the player. that is just stylized. It's tough to tell, but it looks like all the things are there to imply that. It didn't come through well in the background. It would have been better if they hadn't even tried, but at any rate, that was the other insert, and that was it. Those two inserts. So they have a 45 card set, 60 copies of each card, gold parallel of all those, and two inserts. The card set is now starting to fit more into the pattern and the rhythm of a normal card set, something that's a lot better, but it would still need to be scaled back from that to really be able to be fully embraced, because it's still a lot of cards. And in an era where it was through card shows and card shops that you got these cards, it's still very difficult. So that means that in 2000, they made one more attempt. And this last attempt, they shrank it down to where there are 45 players, but every single player only has their specific cards. So that means it's literally just the 45 cards and the different versions of those cards. The card design itself is a lot blockier, which gives it a much more standardized feel. Not like a normal card, but now it feels more like the kind of card that you're going to expect to see somewhere else. And they have a wonderful Topps Tek logo stuffed down in the corner that is a really cool effect on each one of these cards. So as far as the parallels of the cards go, this is interesting because in 1998, there was only one image for each player. In 1999, they had two different images for the player, 30 cards and 30 cards. But in 2000, they have only one series of backgrounds for the card set, but the first 5 cards have one image. You can see the different backgrounds they have for all 5 of these different cards. But then when you transition over to the patterns 6 through 10, it's a different image. These, of course, are the different patterns of these 5 different cards here in this section of the set. And then they have a third section, patterns number 11 through 15, and they have a different image from the others, and all unique patterns for the background as well. But there's also another section that comes after that, patterns 16 through 20. Each one of these patterns has a color background or a color pattern for the card. Different colors for each one. I'll show you that in a second, but that means that every single player has 4 different images. The first group of images, or the first group of patterns, the second group of patterns, third group of patterns, and then the colored patterns is the last group. 4 different images for each player, but thankfully, it's only patterns 1 through 20. They didn't do anything fancy beyond that. But I mentioned about there are only 45 players, but there are 40 veterans and 5 rookies. So the veterans, they have the first 15 cards are normal, and then the colored patterns are SP cards. The rookie cards are all SP cards, and in fact, every single rookie card of the 5 players, every single card is serial numbered out of 2,000. That is for all the first 15 cards as well as the 5 pattern cards. So the 5 pattern cards, you can see the different colors. They have purple, they have red, they have yellow, they have green, and they have blue. So those are the 5 different patterns, and you can see what the patterns look like, and you can see, attached to the color. But because all of the rookie cards are already SP cards, that means that the colored background or the colored pattern cards have the same rarity as the regular cards. So that means that if you collect all 20 copies of one of the rookies, they're all equally available. Whereas for the veteran cards, the colored pattern cards are a lot harder to get. And as you can imagine, they also have the gold parallel, just like in 1999. This does the exact same thing where they replace the acetate window with gold holofoil. They have the serial number out of 10 on the card back, and they have rounded corners on 2 of the corners of the card, which makes this a lot easier to distinguish if you're looking at an online image. That makes it very obvious. And again, for all 20 cards for each player, but in this case, there are only 900 total unique cards in the set, and then of course 900 gold cards, which normally would be ridiculous, but for this is scaled way down from, remember, instead of 1,800 cards here, it was 16,000 in 1998. So this is a much, much more scaled down card set, which is a lot easier to handle. And again, they have some inserts. They have 3 inserts here in this set. The first one being Architect. Now the Architect cards have a little bit of window on either side. They have a little bit of relief where the word Tech shows up on the card. And otherwise the card has a really cool look to it. And then they have Tectonics. Now Tectonics is a card that is what's die cut on 3 sides. And the die cutting is really dynamic because the whole thing is about explosions and breaking apart and stuff. And the way that the edges feel with the really firm stock of the acetate makes these cards a really interesting card that I think is one of the better cards that Topps made in really the last half of the 90s. Here in the year 2000, it's pretty successful. Then they have their Dramatek Performances cards, which is a card that has just kind of a window of clear acetate inside of it. But this card has a lot more relief on the card that gives it a really good feel to it that makes it pretty unique. And that was it. That was what they did for Topps Tek. There was no 2001 set, but there was a 2014 set. This is a card idea that had its run. It never found its place, and Topps just buried it until 2014 when the market was now ready for tons of parallels. But what they created in 2014 was very different. I'm not going to go into that now. I don't know if I'll ever be able to go into it because of how hard it is to put the pieces together and know what the pieces are. Hopefully I'll be able to put that together at some point. But these 3 card sets in 1998, 99, and 2000 were so far ahead of their time. They were ridiculous by even today's standards, and that was in the late 90s when they did this. So it was ambitious to a breaking point, but it at least helped Topps to get a feeling for what you could get away with or what you couldn't get away with. And it's a card set so ridiculous, most people don't even know it ever existed. So it's fun to discover. It is difficult to take on. I mean, I've been working on this for a year and I'm finally able to do this. So it takes a lot to pursue. But it is one of the really interesting parts of the late 90s to help you get a feeling for just how much everyone was trying to figure out what in the world the new card world was before they kind of settled into the new millennium. So thank you for journeying with me all the way along on this video. I'm going to go ahead and show you all of the different backgrounds of the 1999 set because I didn't get a chance to show it to you in the video. I'm going to tack that on here right now, so I'm going to talk underneath as I show you the 3 different groups of patterns so that you at least know what they are. So I do want to thank you for watching the video today, and I want to make sure to urge you to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And yeah, I guess that brings it all to a close. So thank you very much for watching.